Hi guys, it's Kelly Lativola here and I'm back with another video for Neat and Tangled. Today we are going to be using this Thanks So Much set, the circular stamps and dies, the Grateful Heart stamps and dies, and then the geometric stamps and dies. So basically, here's what happened. I saw a card that was made by my teammate, Daria, and she used the Butterfly Beauties die and the negative of it. And created this super beautiful bright card, and she used just the negative cutout, so not even the stamp set, and I thought it was beautiful and I was super inspired by it. And so that's how we came to be here, where we're going to make 4 cards using the negative and the positives of some die cuts here. So I just want to note there, I do hold my dies down with purple tape. And actually I was talking to another crafting friend about this recently, but I never just tear a piece of the purple tape off and just put it directly in my paper. I always put it on my hand or my pants or something first so that it's not super sticky. And even then I still have to take my adhesive eraser to my die cut pieces afterward to erase that sticky portion of it so it doesn't pick up anything that I don't want it to. Here, this is the card that was pretty much like the main case, I guess, of Daria's card. And I am going to just use a pencil to lightly trace the die cut outline so that I know where to stamp my things. While I am stamping, let's talk about this sale. Neat and Tangled is lovely, Danielle is wonderful, and they are having a 25% off sale. And she's going to keep it going as long as she can. Now, she is still shipping from home, but there are lengthened shipping times because girlfriend at home with 3 kids, homeschooling, shipping packages just by herself. So keep that in mind when you order, but please, again, you know how I feel about supporting small business. The 25% does extend to the sales section, which is already discounted. So that's super awesome. Once I had everything in place and I knew where all my stamps were going to go, I did erase that very light pencil outline. Since I'm going to be doing Copic coloring, once you trap pencil underneath alcohol markers, you cannot erase it. So I wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be any of that in my way. So here I'm just going to stamp that down in Copic Safe ink, and then we're going to be doing a lot of stamping. Well, the die cutting's pretty much already done, just because I wanted you to be able to see kind of how these cards came together, because the point of the video, as you can tell it's a long one, is the using the positives and the negatives of the dies to give you ideas to do that. The coloring and the building of the card is really just an add-on. So here I had one little area that I thought was kind of empty, and so I just stamped another little flower. It doesn't matter how it looks on the background, and that's important to keep in mind because we're going to be covering all of that up. For this one, I'm going to use this circle die, so the positive piece, as a mask to do some, I don't want to call it a wreath because that's not accurate, but I don't know, like a floral spray behind the circle. So I just used my Tombow Mono multi-glue. One of the reasons that this is my go-to glue is because if you let it dry before you put it down, it is repositionable. Again, I do kind of like tap it on my hand or my pants or something like that so it's not as sticky. And then I'm just going to go around and kind of stamp around this whole circle to create my focal point. As we go through this video, please forgive my sniffling. It is allergy season, obviously. It's April, and I am in the thick of it, unfortunately. So here you could see, because the cardstock is a little bit thicker, I'm getting some gapping in between the circle as a mask and my background paper, and I just stood up and gave it really good pressure. There is still a very thin gap in between them, but ultimately at the end of the day, once I put my sentiment on it, I won't be able to see any of that, so I'm not super concerned. If you are super concerned about it, you can actually just stamp this without doing any of the masking at all. It would just probably give you more to color, and then put your circle sentiment over top of it. But this is how I decided to use my positive piece for my circle. Anyway, Daria's card was beautiful. It just was so bright and fun, and I love the way that she did it. It was super simple. Here I'm just filling in some of the gaps with the 2 leaves that are included in the Grateful Heart set, just to kind of fill that out, and then I will stamp 2 more on the other sides of the little buds, again, just to fill them in. I got really, really fast at coloring this stamp, let me tell you, because I colored it so many times. By the end of it, I was just like whipping through it super fast. So there is something to be said for practicing. Here, I'm having to use this tool to try to get my circle up. It's not because the circle is stuck down there so well. It's because I couldn't use my fingernails because I have a dark color nail polish on, and I would risk like streaking it across the white cardstock if I used my fingernails. Here is the positive piece of the diamond shapes, and I am just going to basically fill this up with these flowers. Here's the real deal. I should have used my Big Misty, not the Big Misty, the regular original size Misty. I'm using my mini Misty because it fits better on my screen, but I should have used the big one because I really could not get great placement. I kept having to move my die around to try and get my stamp to fit. And also I am lazy, so I don't clean my stamps in between. Like, that's just real talk. You should clean your stamps. You should absolutely do that so that you don't get any ink anywhere you don't want it. But I am lazy and I'm not going to do that. So I did get some ink some places that I didn't want. Don't worry. I have a fix for that. You'll see later. I have a fix for, well, I don't want to say everything, but you know how I say everything is fixable. So sometimes you just gotta make some magic. You just gotta make it work. As far as life goes, we have made it through week 1 of the new job. Everybody has been very nice. I love, love, love being back on the radio again. Training is challenging. I think training is challenging for anybody, especially when you have, how do I say it? Like, I have worked for this, my prior job. I worked there for 16 years. I knew all the ins and outs of it. I knew where everything was. I knew who the go-to people were. I had doped out who was what and where the things were and how all the things needed to go. Now, it took me a long time to be able to do that, but with experience comes those little nuances of information that you pick up. And so it really was not a challenge for me anymore, which was honestly one of my problems. I'm going to be honest. It was one of the reasons why I didn't quite enjoy the job as much. But it was also very comfortable. Like, basically they joked around at the station that the miscellaneous box in the clerk's office was just like Kelly's box, because if you didn't know what to do with it, you gave it to me. And I would know what to do with it. And again, that just comes from years of experience. So then going to a new job where I know how to do the job. And you can put me down in front of a radio and I can dispatch police. I could probably dispatch fire too. I might not do it exactly the way they want me to do it, but like, nobody's going to die. I can get the job done. But not knowing all of those nuances, not knowing all of the idiosyncrasies is sometimes very challenging. And I am pretty hard on myself when it comes to work ethic or the way that I think I should be performing. And so it has been a little bit of a struggle. It's easier on police radio for me than it is on fire, just because I'm more comfortable there. But regardless, it has been a stretching, a growing experience, which is really good. Challenges are good. I think a lot of times in life we get stuck in these holes where we don't want any adversity, but then you don't grow. There's no growth in the everyday doing the same thing over and over again. There just isn't. There's growth in challenging yourself. And so even when we talk about things like, not even just things as serious as our careers or the things that pay our mortgages, but just even like coloring. There's a lot of people who with coloring, especially with alcohol markers, because it can be challenging in the beginning, they just give up. They just give up and they walk away. And you got to stick with it. whatever the thing is, you just got to stick with it. Just like I'm going to stick with this. And then someday, 10 years from now, I'm going to be totally comfortable with this job and I'll find a different way to challenge myself. Not that, well, dispatching is always kind of challenging because you never really know what's going to come through the phone or the radio or what have you. But that's why I loved it so much. Honestly, that's why I loved it so much. I had so many jobs growing up, and I've been working since I was 14 years old. I had my first job at a Halloween, like it was like a haunted house, but it was in the woods. It was it was really very sad. But like just so many jobs through the years, and I would last a year or two before I learned everything there was to know about it, and there was no moving up, there was no forward motion. It was very stagnant, and then I would move on to the next thing. So I've done a lot of different things, and not until I found dispatching did I find something that I had a heart for it, and I loved it. I loved it from the time that I started it, and 16 years later I still love it. So it's just something I'm so happy to be back to, even though I know I'm a little bit up against it right now. So back to the card for a second. So now here, I'm just checking to make sure everything is there. You can see how the design will look after it's over. And now from here on out, I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the first one. I will show you 1 or 2 flowers with this color combination, and then I'm going to show you the completed piece, and then I will move on to the next one. It was the only way that I could get in all of the color combos without making this video like 4 hours long. And even then I couldn't do any better than 30 minutes. Couldn't do any better than 30 minutes. I would tell you to, go do what you got to do and hit pause and all those other things that you would normally do. Not that you aren't still doing them, but also we're in quarantine. So if the kids are in bed, really, this is your me time, or your time with me, right? Yeah, look at it that way. It's your time with me. So we made it through the first week. The thing that I probably liked the least about it was the 5 a.m. wake up calls. The 5 a.m. wake up calls are not friends. Normally I'm going to bed at 5 a.m., not getting up at 5 a.m. So that has been struggle bus city for this girl. I'm pretty much napping almost every day when I come home for at least 20 minutes just to carry me through. But I told you when we first met that I survived my life on a series of naps, and now I am back at it, folks. Back at the naps. So doing that, and still I'm finding time to do my card making, not just because I have poured so much of blood, sweat, and tears into the videos that I have already made and the relationships that I have established, but also because I do still enjoy card making very much, and so it is a little bit of me time. So I just have to budget my time better. Now I am doing this pretty much when Peanut is sleeping, or when he's at his dad's house, and I have some time home by myself, is when I'm knocking my cards out. So I have managed to, in the last 3 days, knock out 4 card videos. So I have 2 waiting in the wings, 3 waiting in the wings, and then this one. So like basically I'm trying to use my off time to get myself set up for the following couple of weeks. I do still have some other things, some special things coming up, which I am very excited about. And those things have kind of been in the works for a little while. But I work better last minute. That's just me. And it has cost me more than once, that I just work better under pressure. And I'm always like the last person to turn in the assignment. I just am. And I have found in this industry, I'm not alone. There's a lot of creative people who run super late and work best under the gun. Here for this card, it is a little bit more difficult to color a half an image, because you don't always know where the shading should be coming from. Honestly, I do this basically just to save ink, because you're not going to see the majority of it. There are times in other cards where I don't realize that I'm going to cover it all up, or I need to color the whole image, like my brain can't see it as a partial. But in this case, by this point, it's the third flower that I'm coloring, so I got a pretty good grasp on where the shadows should go. And again, I'm doing this coloring my way. So, the lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, getting a really good blend. But these would be super pretty just because there's a little bit more going on. They're a little bit more involved with just maybe a one or two color blend, or, probably even just one solid color. Because I feel like the focal points are strong enough that you wouldn't even necessarily notice if all that shading was missing. But this is because it is also my therapy, like we just talked about, and I enjoy doing it. That's why I choose to color them the way that I do, even though you can only see minimal amounts of it. So yeah. Oh, the other thing that we're doing is, so I have a 2013 Ford Focus. Now, notoriously through Ford, the 2000 and I think it's from 12 to 17 or 18, they basically put a transmission inside this car that is too small for the car, and it's causing the clutch to burn out. They extended everybody's warranties. I've had my clutch replaced 3 different times because it's burned out, but now my warranty is up. There's a class action lawsuit. There's a whole big lemon law to do about it. But here's the problem. In order to get anything out of that class action lawsuit, you have to hang on to this car until it's over, until they reach a settlement. And that could be 10 years, 20 years. I mean, the way litigation goes. I'm not hanging on to this car that long. I paid it off 2 years ago, and Ford is going to stop making sedans. I come from a Ford family, been Ford my whole life. And even though I have not loved my last Focus, I have loved all my prior vehicles before that one. My grandfather retired from Ford. My mother retired from Ford. A couple of my uncles and my grandmother also worked there. So we just always been a Ford family. And I don't really want to buy anything else. So here is my hope. And I realize that this is a lofty goal. But my hope is, if I buy a sedan in 2020, which is the last year that they're making them, and they're switching to just making SUVs, that by the time I pay off said vehicle and drive it for the extra couple of years that hopefully I can get out of it, Ford will have realized that they've made a massive mistake in not producing sedans anymore, and they will have gone back. And I'll be able to purchase another one. Or I'll have to suck it up, buttercup, and, buy a small, like an Escape or something. I don't really love SUVs. So that has been the game plan. The game plan has always been to buy a new car this year, toward the end of the year. But with the Rona 2020 going on, there's nobody selling any cars, and there's crazy deals out there right now. So one of the ones that I got sent to me was 0% APR for 84 months on a 2019, and 0% APR on a for 72 months on a 2020. So that's the entire length of, that's 6-7 years. So I'm maybe now's the time to buy. So Eric and I discuss it. We decided we're going to try to get a little bit more information about it. And in order to see what we have to go back to the card. So now here, this is just a couple of things that I did that basically to bulk up my focal points. For this one, you've seen me do this before, I'm going to outline it in a light blue, and then I'm going to blend that out with an even lighter blue, just to make it a little bit more weighty, a little bit more substantial, so it kind of fills up that card. So that's what we're doing with this one. So anyway, we need to figure out what they're going to give me for my trade-in. Now, I know, the dealership knows, I know, they know, I know, that this car is part of a class action lawsuit. So what are they really going to give me for it? I don't honestly know. I'm hoping something, because I did buy it from them, but we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, for the last couple of months, I think that we did talk about this, my check engine light came on. And I had a friend who's a mechanic run a diagnostic on it, and it came back that it's my O2 sensor. Apparently you have 2 O2 sensors. One of them is a downstream downstream, upstream. I don't know which one matters, but one of them affects your fuel. And that's the one that I have a boo-boo with. And so I have to get it fixed. And I'm not real thrilled about it. Also, I started getting snow tires on my car because I live in Northeast Ohio pretty much the same year that I bought it. And so I have to get my snow tires taken off, even though it snowed today, April 22nd. It snowed today, Ohio. I have to get my snow tires taken off. So I'm going to do those things all in one fell swoop. Back to the card. So here, remember how I told you I used a dirty stamp and I just kept stamping with it even though it was getting ink all over the places that I didn't want it to be? This is serving twofold for me. This dark gray background is going to cover up all of my smudgy fingerprints. It's also, again, going to give my die cut a little bit more weight so that when it's sitting on the card, it fills up more space, or appears to fill up more space. I'm going to do the same thing with this blue one because the white outline on top of a white background was making it look very sparse. So I chose, because I have a real problem with my cards matching, especially when I'm taking photos of them, I chose to do the same C7, that dark gray color, but you could really do this any color you wanted. In Daria's original one, she did a blue background with like hot pink flowers, and it was beautiful. So don't be afraid to mix it up here. I went with neutrals because I like all my things to be matchy-matchy. Here, originally, I had stamped it in a way that filled the whole thing up. And then it got kind of scooted down, and I liked that a lot better. And since I haven't put it on a card base yet, when I adhere it, I am just going to scoot the card base down. Here, I did die cut a black circle. I'm not using the original positive. You totally could, though. You would just take a black ink pad. You could use distress ink. You could use, ink pad straight to paper. To turn the original one black and then let that dry completely before you do any embossing on it. But that would work. I just chose not to do that. I chose to just use black cardstock. And I want to fill in those areas to make sure when I pop it up and you're looking at it from the side, you don't see any of that white sticking through. This white embossing powder was the bane of my existence. I am not even going to lie to you. This was the kryptonite to my Superman. I hit it with my adhesive eraser, because I told you in the last video, I'm running out of black cardstock. So I'm having to piecemeal them together. And these are ones that I already cut, like die cut pieces out of. Don't do the die cuts first. Okay, let me just go ahead and tell you this. Don't do the die cuts first, because I ran into the problem where even though I hit it with the adhesive eraser and I hit it with an anti-static tool, when I stamped it and put the embossing powder on, just look at it. Just look at it. I mean, the embossing powder is sticking everywhere. And then I had to sit there for painstaking minutes cleaning this thing off with a paintbrush to eventually I got to the point where I just didn't care. And I have a fix for that too. So hang in there. So anyway, I decided that I'm going to take the car in, and I'm kind of limited on time. They can't get it done in one day because I can't get it there early enough. I don't get off work until 2 p.m. So today I come home from work, pass Eric in the driveway. Nice to see ya. He goes to work. I come in, get Peanut. We cleaned up some things or whatever. And then I drive out there to drop my car off to get the loaner. Now, mind you, on my way out there, when I had talked to, and I know the people who own the mechanic shop. When I talked to him, he told me, I have a loaner for you. I tell him, I got to put my car seat in it. He was like, yeah, no problem, whatever. He tells me it's a Chevy Spark. I know nothing about cars. He could have been like, it's a Mercury Kangaroo. And I would have been like, awesome. Sounds perfect. I don't know what they are. I don't know what it means. I realized that I've been doing a job for a very long time where vehicle descriptions are involved, but I don't know what any of those vehicles look like. Okay? Just straight up. I don't know what they are. So he tells me it's a Chevy Spark. And I say, is it a big car or a small car? And he was like, it's a small car. It's about the size of what you're driving now. This was a lie. This was not the truth. Because this vehicle basically is a Matchbox car. I'm not even lying. It is so small. If you don't know what a Chevy Spark is, if you're like me, Google it. Google it right quick. Or go to my Instagram because I took a picture. So not only am I driving around in a toy car that I honestly had no idea how I was even going to get Nathan's the car seat in. Thankfully, Eric was able to figure out that the anchor is in the trunk. Yeah, that's how close to the back seat it is. Also, back seat super close to the front. Back to the card. Here, I like things framed in. I just really do. And it was feeling a little naked. So I decided to put the die cut back in place and then use my black EK Success journaling pens. They are discontinuing these. A comparable is a Micron or a Copic Multiliner. Anyway, I decided to just use that to outline it, and I'm going to do the same thing for the other card that uses this die, and it just like finishes it off nicely. Just be aware when you're tracing around it that the areas where the metal connectors are can kind of leave bumps, so make sure you don't go around those. Stop at those bumps, and then you can go back in and fill that solid line in after you move the die. Okay, so the toy Matchbox car. So Eric figures out that you can put the anchor in the back seat, which was awesome because I had no idea how to get that car seat in the car. I have no clue. It has this is so sad. It has a racing stripes down like the front of the hood and over the roof, and on the side of it is the logo for the mechanic shop. And like, so it's a red car with like bright white lettering down the side that's just a giant advertisement. I'm driving a giant advertisement. Thankfully, it is only for the next 24 hours because it is hideous. It is so terrible. I cannot wait to get my vehicle back so that I can give them a hard time, because I do know them, about me having to drive this thing around for the last 24 hours. Thankfully, all I had to do was come home and then go to work tomorrow and then back to pick up my car. Praise Jesus, hallelujah. So putting the cards together. Here, I put some white glitter paper underneath it because I didn't want anything that was going to be too contrasting, but I also didn't want to put a huge black circle there. So I did die cut a slightly smaller one to fill up the space with my sentiment, and then I'm going to put my flowers on either side of this to create that focal point. I think I would probably add some sequins to this to maybe help fill up some of that white space in the top left-hand corner. But I'm honestly, I'm happy with the way that the card came out. I love the hot pink. And I discovered through making these little card sets, which are more encouragement cards, which will be going, to first responders and healthcare workers and all of that. I'm on that kick right now. I'm loving people. I'm loving them. I really just love neon green. That's pretty much what I've come to. Like, blue is my boyfriend. Blue is my boyfriend. Nothing has changed there. But if I had to have a side piece, I think maybe it would be lime green. I'm going to be honest. Because I love lime green with navy blue. I love it with hot pink. I love it with purple. It clearly goes with red. It's its complementary color. I mean, honestly, my mother doesn't like green at all, and I found myself just totally in love with it through this entire little card set. For this card, I'm doing 2 layers of foam. So I'm popping up the sentiment on foam tape, and then I'm going to pop up the whole piece on foam tape. So that center portion actually has 2 layers of foam. So that it really sets them apart. I was a little nervous about this one. I thought it might cover up too much of the flowers, but I don't. I think it's a really good complement to the diamond centerpiece there. I think it looks really cute. And the thanks so much set also had some geometric shapes in there, which is why the sentiments are shaped how they are. I will tell you that one is already on sale. So if you decide to go shop that 25% off sale, that one's a super good deal. The rest of them are as well, and they're much newer sets. But sometimes, oldies are goodies. So here I'm popping the entire panel up on foam to give it some separation from that background. And then I'm I am just going to trim off. Remember, I told you I had to line them up a little differently because I like the way it looked better. I'm just going to trim that off, and you'll never even know when I put it on a card base that one side doesn't completely match up. For the sentiment, this sentiment is actually the only one that's from the Grateful Heart set. All the other ones are from Thanks So Much. But I'm going to just lay this right across the bottom third and pop it up on foam so that it's flush with the sides, and put some glue there to adhere that. And then the only other thing that I'm going to do is add some glitters, because I got to add some glitters. I always got to add some glitters. That's a staple in all of my cards. So all of the flowers that were visible got a little bit of clear glitter, and then that's pretty much it. That's all the cards. So thank you, Daria, for the inspiration. I love that we as creators are inspired by each other, and thank you guys for hanging in there with me for a super long video. Wish me luck to get my car back so I can stop driving the toy Matchbox car. Here is that trick I told you for when you don't care about embossing. So I'm going to go in with my black pen and just do dots. In some lights, you can see the lines, so don't get crazy and be all scribbly. Just do dots on the dots to cover them up. You could also do that with a Copic marker. And then in the areas where maybe my embossing was not as bold as I liked, I just went over it with a white gel pen. Give it a second to dry so you don't smear it, but then you pretty much should be golden. That's how I fix all of my embossing if there's an issue. That's it. That's all 4 cards. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and I will catch you on the next video. Bye.